So I went onto Reddit yesterday and I saw this thread, and I just had a couple things that I feel like I could contribute to this now that I've had a little bit of time to be on the manufacturing side of things. Mostly what it is 64 Audio has this IEM called the Solo. It is around $1,400 US, and people have found that the planar drivers used in it are $55 a piece from Alibaba. And in the comments, a lot of people are pretty displeased that you are essentially getting $50 drivers in a $1,400 IEM. Now, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I want to note as a disclaimer before I get to any of this that I work at headphones.com. This is a company that sells the 64 Audio Solo, so take whatever I say with a grain of salt, but there's my disclaimer to you. I think this would apply to just about anything across the board, but $55 is a really high price for a driver. Like a really, really high price for a driver. Balanced armatures, the things that you'll see, maybe 12 of or 6 of in a really high-end IEM are pennies, $2, especially when you're buying them from an OEM. $55 if 64 Audio is actually paying that, which I doubt they are. They're probably paying notably less than that, but if they were paying $55 for a single driver, $110 for a pair of drivers, that would be wild. Like, that would just be insane. And again, normally drivers for IEMs are pennies. Normally drivers for full-size headphones are notably cheaper than this, like within the several dollars to maybe upwards of $10 if it's a planar and they're a really small manufacturer, or less, like notably less. Then it circles back around to this question, what are you actually paying for in a product like this if the drivers are normally so cheap? If, balanced armatures are normally pennies, $2, or if in this case, even if 64 Audio was paying, $55 a driver, and then charging $1,400 for the IEM, so you're like, where's all that money going? That's a really good question. And I don't know exactly, but looking at their imagery, there's a few things that I can see in here. I know they say they tune this with Helmholtz resonators, but they're clearly also using some sort of passive analog filter network right here to tune these IEMs. And on their site, especially on their product page, they claim that this has linear impedance. Here it is, linear impedance design, which is something that does take a degree of expertise to be able to do, especially when you are using a passive analog filter network or something like this to try and add some degree of tuning to the device. But you're not just paying for that. Usually in a product like this, you're paying for the brand name, the tuning, the comfort, the experience of the brand, not just their R&D, but like you could probably buy just some other random IEM that has the same driver in it, and I highly doubt that it would sound anything like 64's IEM. But that's because 64 is a company that's been around for a while. They've been tuning IEMs for a while. They've been talking to creators. They've been talking to stores. They've been talking to all kinds of people. They do a lot of measurements. And they're not just slapping an IEM in a chassis and calling it a day. They're tuning it. And a lot of what you're paying for is their time that goes into it and the tuning expertise and the building expertise that leads to the final product. That's how it is with most things. With a lot of things, you're not directly paying for the bill of materials, because then companies wouldn't be able to stay in business. That's just how it is. In fact, a lot of things in this hobby, especially in the high end, are substantially cheaper to make than they actually sell for. And there's plenty of things that are in the many of thousands of dollars price points that don't cost that to build, at least when you look at the material standpoint. You start looking at labor and things like that, the prices go way, way up. And you start looking at the time it took for them to produce it, R&D, of course, the expertise, how much the people cost on their engineering team that are able to design those things, that are able to provide their experience on these products. Depends on if they're doing things in-house or if they're outsourcing stuff, how much that's going to cost either way. If it's in-house, they're going to have a lot more control over the things that are regularly happening and changing in their design. I'm sure they had to go through a bunch of different iterations of the PCB that's in here, and so on and so on. It continues. I saw another good comment in this thread from Valphonics here. Hey, I've worked with a few IEM companies in modeling and tuning, so I think I should be allowed to put a bit of insight into this. $100 a pair is actually a lot of money. That's what I was saying earlier. The binning process, which I didn't even count for that. If you were binning your drivers and matching them, the yields are going to be pretty low, so you're going to probably be paying 6-7 times that. The binning process, or having drivers to a standard, is what drives up value. That's true. That does bring up the price a lot. along with assembly, QC, R&D, so on. Yes, it's not uncommon for companies to use off-the-shelf drivers. In fact, almost everyone does it. They say everyone here. It's really almost everyone. There are some companies that use in-house drivers, like Odyssey's done that. The likes of larger manufacturers actually advertise exactly what BAs they use. That's balanced armatures, and people do not bat an eye with them being off the shelf. Same thing with the price of those, because those BAs are cheap, especially when you're buying them directly from an OEM as a manufacturer. So none of this is to try and justify the price of high-end audio, but I do want to kind of give you guys more of an insight as to what it is that people are paying for in these things. It is almost never the price of the driver. Drivers are universally one of the cheaper components in the construction of almost any audio product. And in many ways, what the driver should do is it should just be something that is low in distortion, linear, and able to be tuned to the target that is best suited for your application. That is the purpose of the driver, and ideally something that's durable as well. But aside from that, the driver is not really what's going to predominantly determine the tuning of your IEM and the sound quality of it. A lot of that's going to come down to the design and engineering of the rest of the product, and that intangible facet is what people are paying for. So, just my 2 cents on this. And if you think I'm a 64 shill, I actually think that Mega 5 EST is a much better IEM at like maybe a third of the price of this. It's a little over a third of the price. It's between like a third and a half, maybe like 2/5 of the price of this. So take that how you will. But I do think that 64 Audio is a pretty good company. So just a little rant today. If you like this video, leave a like down below. Comment, let me know what you want to see in the future. I will catch you guys pretty soon, but I just wanted to comment on this today. Till next one, guys. Peace.